Prabhupada, Jai Vrindavan Dham, Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. The subject matter is good. Very nice. At Ohio State Hitchcock Hall, 1,000 students occupied the seats and 1,000 more crowded the aisles and stage. The program began with the kirtan led by Allen Ginsberg. Allen then introduced Prabhupada, and Prabhupada lectured. When Prabhupada began the second and final kirtan of the evening, the students responded wildly. Those seated stood and danced. And some students jumping in their seats, and those in the aisles and on the stage also joined in. Amid the thunderous kirtan of nearly 2,000 voices, Prabhupada began to dance, jumping up and down on the speaker's dais, his hands raised high. He threw flowers from his garland, and the students scrambled for them. The wildly ecstatic kirtan continued for almost an hour. And then Prabhupada brought it to a close. Afterwards, hundreds of students crowded close around Prabhupada, asking him questions. Many students continued to chant as they left the hall, and some left crying from the new sensations of spiritual happiness. The next day, the ecstatic night of chanting at Hitchcock Hall was all the talk of the campus. Prabhupada was pleased with the evening, and he described the event in a letter to the devotees. Yesterday at the Ohio State University, we had a tremendous meeting, and nearly 2,000 students were dancing, clapping, chanting along with us. So it is clear that the student community has a nice potential for accepting this philosophy. New Vrindavan, a letter, May 21st, 1969. Accompanied by Kirtananda Swami and Hari Griva, Prabhupada then traveled from Columbus to New Vrindavan farm project in the hills of West Virginia. When their car got stuck in a neighbor's garden near the entrance to the property, Prabhupada decided to walk. Oh, it's not. I'll let you do it. Very good. Thank you. Prabhupada decided to walk the final 2 miles along the muddy access road that led to the farm. The road soon ended, however, and Prabhupada with his 2 guides picked up a footpath entering the dense forest. The mid-May trees were still coming into foliage, and the sunlight broke through the branches to a carpet of brilliant purple phlox. Prabhupada walked quickly ahead of Kirtananda and Hari Griva, who hurried to keep up. A winding creek repeatedly crossed the path, and Prabhupada would cross by stepping from stone to stone. The road, he said, would not be difficult to travel by ox cart. The forest was like a jungle, just as he had expected and wanted. For the past year, Prabhupada had corresponded with Kirtananda Swami and Hari Griva concerning New Vrindavan, and this correspondence had established the direction for the Krishna-conscious community. Prabhupada had said he wanted the community based on Vedic ideals, everyone living simply, keeping cows and working the land. To Sumati Murariji, International Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. These are letters that Srila Prabhupada personally wrote. I shall try to see if there are any similar society here, but one thing I can suggest, as you have asked me to give a thought to this problem, that Go Seva, according to our Vedic injunction, is specially entrusted to the mercantile community. Of course, during the Hindu government in India, the kings were mostly Vaishnavas like Maharaj Parikshit and he at once caught the black man Kali who was attempting to kill a cow. But those days are no more. Neither there is a king like Maharaj Parikshit, nor the present government of India is inclined to give protection to the cows. But the mercantile community, especially the Gujaratis and the Marwaris, are undoubtedly rich in India, and I do not know why such mercantile communities do not open large-scale dairy farms. They will certainly give actual protection to the cows. From Bhagavad-Gita, we understand that the Vaishya community is specifically responsible for giving protection to the cows, as much as the Kshatriya kings are responsible for giving protection to the citizens of the state. As such, if you can organize, and I believe you can do so because by grace of Krishna, you are in good position amongst the mercantile community, big dairy farms with large pasturing grounds, then the problem of milk supply and cow protection will automatically be done. I do not know how much you will appreciate this suggestion, but if you can do such organization, it will be a great service to the country and to the animals, and to this cause of Krishna consciousness. If you be serious on this point, then I can help you with all of my possible energies. Regarding your foundation, I am very glad that you have registered the Srimati Morariji Foundation with the aims and objects of imparting educational as well as cultural training to the younger generation. But in this line of activities, also I will suggest that you should impart transcendental training for their becoming Krishna conscious on the basis of the principles of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedanta Sutra, and alloyed literatures, as I am trying to do here. You will be surprised to know that my humble service in this country is being highly appreciated by the younger section of the country. So if the younger section of all countries combine together on this cultural training of Krishna consciousness, there will be great change on the present situation of the world. Music and dance and distribution of prasadam are the main items of my Krishna conscious propagation, and they are acting so nicely. Perhaps you know I am organizing here a community center in West Virginia on a land of about 200 acres, and it will be a replica of Vrindavan. So it is my ambition, as foretold by Lord Chaitanya, that the people of the world will be happy under the banner of Krishna consciousness. Let us try our best for this greatest philosophy of life. Of course, medical and other relief work to the distressed persons are not objectionable items, but actually the people of the whole world are suffering on account of lacking in Krishna consciousness. I meditate on the name that Srila Prabhupada selected, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And it is really the United Nations. And it is, that Prabhupada foresaw the prophecy of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur as instructed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that this would happen all over the world. So the name, what is in a name? Prabhupada named it the International Society. So you see here so many people coming from so many countries, all chanting Hare Krishna. It's absolutely beautiful. Hare Krishna. Anyway, I am trying, practically struggling single-handedly in this great endeavor, and my financial strength is practically zero, but I think you have got sufficient knowledge about that. But if your newly founded institution cooperates with me, it will be a great success. So far, donation to this foundation, naturally I shall be inclined to donate in kind. I have already printed my following books: Bhagavad-Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Easy Journey to Other Planets, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and so on, as well as our Back to Godhead magazine. and I shall be glad to donate free as many copies as your foundation may require from me. You shall be glad to know that by this time I have opened one center in Hamburg, West Germany, and one center in London, England. Please let me know if your steamer service is now open for London, Los Angeles, and Hamburg. Thanking you in anticipation and awaiting your early reply. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. In a new Vrindavan, the devotees would have to develop these ideas gradually. It will take time. But even in the beginning, the keynote would be simple living and high thinking. Because the community would remain completely aloof from the city, it would at first appear inconvenient and austere. But life would be peaceful, free from the anxieties of the artificial urban society based on hard work for sense gratification. And most important, the members of such a community would be serving Krishna and chanting his name. Prabhupada spoke little, making his way along the path as if it was his own home. They stopped beside the creek and Prabhupada sat down on a blanket. Kirtananda and Swami and Harigriva spread for him on a blanket that Kirtananda Swami and Harigriva spread for him on the grass. We're stopping for Kirtananda, Prabhupada said. He is tired. Prabhupada and his party drank water from the creek, rested briefly, and then continued. We had a farm on the big island of Hawaii that Srila Prabhupada came to visit. And he was asking, he was very practical, he was saying, what can you grow here? And it was kind of up the hill some, and in Hawaii, most everything was in sugarcane or pineapple, but they were saying, we can grow corn. We can grow corn. And Prabhupada said, corn, this is very good. Grow corn and have some cows. And it was cold. I lived there for a little bit of time. Even for Hawaii, Hawaii is not a cold place. It's very tropical. But Prabhupada went and blessed that land. And actually, it was really very sweet. As they rounded a curve in the road, Prabhupada could see a clearing on the ridge ahead. A small frame house and a barn stood in the lower edge of the ridge. These two ancient structures, Harigriva explained, were the only buildings on New Vrindavan's 120 acres. As no vehicle traveled here, the paths were overrun with high grass. A willow spread its branches close by the old house. The settlement was the picture of an undisturbed, primitive life. Prabhupada liked the simple life in New Vrindavan, and whatever simple thing the devotees offered him, he accepted with satisfaction. They served him freshly ground wheat cereal cooked in milk, and he said it was wonderful. Then he saw the kitchen's dirt floor covered with cow dung. He approved, saying it was just like an Indian village. Radha-Krishna deities had been traveling with the Radha-Krishna deities he had been traveling with for the last month and a half, and had his servant Devananda improvise an altar on a small table to one side of the room. Arranging his two trunks as a desk and placing a picture of his spiritual master on one of the trunks, Prabhupada immediately resumed his usual schedule. He would take his late morning massage sitting outside and then bathe with warm water in the improvised outdoor shower stall. Kirtananda Swami prepared Prabhupada's usual lunch of dal, rice, chapatis, plus some local pokeweed. The previous summer, Kirtananda Swami and Harigriva had picked and canned blackberries, which they now served Prabhupada as blackberry chutney. The chapatis were from freshly milled whole wheat, and everything was cooked over a wood fire. The best fuel for cooking, Prabhupada said, was cow dung. Wood was second, gas was third, and electricity last. Prabhupada spent much of his day out of doors under a persimmon tree, about 100 feet from the house, There he would sit and read at a low table one of the men had built. Often he would look up from his reading and gaze across the deep valley to a distant ridge where the forest met the sky. In the late afternoon, devotees would gather under the persimmon tree with Prabhupada, sitting and talking with them until after sunset. They saw Prabhupada living with them as a practical demonstration of New Vrindavan's importance. If he, the greatest devotee, could be satisfied living simply and chanting Hare Krishna in this backwoods setting, then they should follow his example. Comparing New Vrindavan to the Vrindavan in India, Prabhupada said that New Vrindavan was in some ways better, since Vrindavan, India was now congested with worldly men. 500 years ago, the Goswami followers of Lord Chaitanya had excavated the sites of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, and only pure devotees had lived there. But in the recent years, Vrindavan had become a place for materialists and impersonalists. New Vrindavan, however, should admit only the spiritually inclined. In Vedic society, Prabhupada said everyone had been satisfied to live like this in a small village beside a river. Factories were unnecessary. Prabhupada, when asked, "What is hell?" he described factory life. And then when they said, "Well, it sounds like a factory," then he said, "But there were no newspapers." In those days, everyone was very habituated, just like here, this gentleman here is looking at his social media, and everyone's habituated to news. You know, they're looking at something on their, in those days, it was newspaper or magazines. And these days, it's social media on your phone. So it is a sign, it is a habituation. And Prabhupada really did he nipped that with us. We were such young devotees, and he took us away from everything that was Maya, that would detour us or drag our consciousness away from Krishna consciousness. And so these devices, I mean, they're called devices for a reason. They can be divisive and take us away from Krishna if we're not using them in his service. So Prabhupada, even when they got the telex machine, it was a machine for international communications for the BBT. And he said, "Oh, now they can gossip more." So we have to be very careful what is our intention if we're using something in Krishna's service, or if somehow or other where this device is creating some divisiveness. We have to be very careful. Prabhupada wanted this Vedic way of life for the entire world, and New Vrindavan would serve as a model for the benefit of the masses. New Vrindavan had no phone and mail and had to be fetched by a 2-mile walk. I remember when we would first come to Vrindavan and we'd catch the train and come by Tonga. There were no all these tempos and rickshaws and everything. It was we had just and they would say Anglesi Mandir, and we would come to Krishna Balaram Mandir. In those days, it was sandy paths. Sandy path. The Parikrama Marg was a sandy path. It was quite sweet. Quite sweet. And we were walking with Pradumna, and there was a $20 bill on the Parikrama Marg rolling in the breeze. No one knew what it was. He did, because he's American, so he picked it up. And he said, "Boy, I really needed some Lakshmi," and Krishna provided. It was just blowing in the wind. And we were with Prabhupada's party, and you could just see how everything would be provided. And also this idea of no phone and being very cut off. We didn't listen to the news even. We had no idea what was going on in politics. Prabhupada said, this is prajalpa. We have to control where our mind goes. He was very keen on training us to control where our mind goes. If our mind goes to the news or it's going to some distraction, you bring it back. And the only thing we used newspaper for was Prabhupada said it's for wrapping garbage, basically. But at the same time, we were using the newspapers in our area in Hawaii. Prabhupada asked us to make deities. So we didn't have much money, but we were going door to door, and we were asking if they wouldn't give us anything, they would give us their old newspapers, and we were making paper mache deities for a number of temples, our own temple and Laguna Beach and a few other temples we made deities for out of old newspaper. And anyone would give you your old newspaper because it's really useless. It's absolutely useless. News isn't news, it's useless. And Prabhupada taught us that early on. Be careful. Don't get distracted. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. So Prabhupada said Prabhupada said New Vrindavan was like Vrindavan. India, both Vrindavans lacked in modern amenities. This difficulty, however, coupled well with Vaishnava philosophy that modern amenities are not worth the trouble required to get them. A devotee accepting whatever nature provides spends his time and energy in spiritual life. New Vrindavan's only cow was black and white, a black and white crossbreed named Kalia, and Prabhupada would drink a little of her milk morning, noon, and night. I haven't tasted milk like this in 65 years, he said. One day he predicted New Vrindavan would have many cows, and their udders would be so full that the dripping milk would muddy the pastures. Although people in the West were blind to their great sin of cow slaughter and its grievous karmic reaction, he said New Vrindavan would demonstrate to the world the social, moral, and economic advantages of protecting the cow and utilizing her milk rather than killing her and eating her flesh. Prabhupada wanted the New Vrindavan devotees to build cottages. He wanted many buildings, even if at first they were primitive, and he gave a plan for a simple structure of baked mud. He also wanted a Krishna-conscious school, and the country, he said, would be the best place for it. The city is made for man, and the country is made by God. Prabhupada said, paraphrasing the British poet Cowper, the young students should learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, and at the same time they should become pure devotees. In their play, they could imitate the pastimes of Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends, with one child massaging Krishna, another wrestling with Krishna, just as in the spiritual world. The woman in New Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, should care for the children, clean the temple, cook for the deities, and churn butter. He had many plans for New Vrindavan, and he was giving only idea seeds and few details. You develop it to your heart's content, he told Kirtananda Swami. An ideal Vedic community with the members producing all their own food and necessities was what Prabhupada wanted. Unless devotees at New Vrindavan would become self-sufficient, he said, there was no use in their occupying such a big piece of land. Even before Prabhupada's visit to New Vrindavan, he had requested Kirtanananda Swami and Harigriva to plan for 7 temples on the property. These 7 temples should be named after the major temples in Old Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Govindaji, Gopinath, Radha Damodar, Radha Raman, Shyamasundar, and Radha Gokulananda. Prabhupada said he would personally secure Radha Krishna deities for each temple. It was inevitable that Prabhupada leave New Vrindavan. Letters from London, Los Angeles, and San Francisco compelled him to travel. On the day of his departure, the New Vrindavan devotees teased him, saying he couldn't go. Kirtananda Swami went so far as to say they would block his way on the road. But Prabhupada corrected him. You can't do that to the spiritual master. Accompanied by Kirtananda Swami and the New Vrindavan devotees, Prabhupada walked along the forest path. The New Vrindavan countryside was verdant, the summer air hot and moist. Prabhupada was silent. He had come here to encourage his disciples, and he himself had also become encouraged. Here was a simple village life as Krishna himself had lived it, depending on the land and the cow. That was the first article I read. It was in 1969 March, and it said, depend on Krishna, the cow, and the land. And I was so sold out reading that. It was written by Srila Prabhupada, and it caught me. It caught my heart. When I read that article, I said, where do I sign? I want to sign up for this. This is so good. Depending upon Krishna, the land, and the cow. That cow, Kalia, had given such nice milk. New Vrindavan's cows were not ordinary. They knew they would not be killed. So far, only a few devotees were here, but by Krishna's grace, more would come. Prabhupada and Kirtananda Swami walked together along the forest path, saying a little, but their mutual understanding was deep. Prabhupada hadn't given him many specific instructions, a few words while sitting or walking together outdoors, a gesture, a facial expression of pleasure or concern. Kirtananda Swami would understand, however, that New Vrindavan was very dear to his spiritual master and should become dear to him also. Prabhupada assured him that because the devotees of New Vrindavan were centered on chanting Hare Krishna, serving the deities and protecting the cows, Krishna would bless them with success. The community was already successful, and Krishna would continue to protect the devotees against all impediments and difficulties. At the end of the 2-mile walk, Prabhupada, surrounded by his followers, stood beside the car that was to take him to the airport in Pittsburgh, from where he would fly to Los Angeles. His suitcases, which had come out of a horse-drawn cart, were loaded into the car's luggage compartment, and Prabhupada got into the back seat. Amid cries of Hare Krishna and Prabhupada, the car pulled out into the country highway, and Prabhupada continued chanting Hare Krishna on his beads. What a moment for when Prabhupada would be coming. We would all get super excited, and we would start painting everything, making everything fresh, decorating, recovering things, cleaning, painting. We were very, very much engaged. And I think that wherever Prabhupada went, there was a smell of fresh paint. The other thing was, in the old days, every single temple you went to, it smelled like spiritual sky incense and ghee, freshly made ghee, because we were continuously making ghee. And I used to say, this is the smell of the spiritual world. It was just, and it was uniform. Every temple you went to, it smelled like spiritual sky incense and ghee. Because in the beginning days, Prabhupada set out, he trained the devotees how to make incense and do a business to support the temple. So Prabhupada had been hearing regularly from his six disciples in London, having little money and living as separate couples in different parts of the city. They found their greatest inspiration in Prabhupada's letters. They would repeatedly read his instructions and dream of when he would one day visit them in London. Although in San Francisco, Krishna consciousness had been fun for the three couples, in England they were becoming more and more difficult. The devotees, being foreigners, were not allowed to earn a salary, and except for a few contacts, they knew no one. Although unable to live together, they were trying to maintain their morale and Krishna consciousness. Jamuna says, I had to move to a Jamaican ghetto, the top floor of the building. It was awful. Day after day, I would sit and listen to a tape of Prabhupada singing. It was a beautiful tape he had just done in Los Angeles, and I would pray to him, please come, please come. Mukunda, letters, that's what kept us alive. Prabhupada would write and say, I'm coming. 2 or 3 times he wrote to say, I'm coming by March. And we would write back and say, we wanted to get a place first. We really felt it wouldn't be right for him to come unless we had a place first. He wrote a letter to my wife, I was planning to come by March, but your husband is not allowing me. What can I do? The devotees in London had not seen Prabhupada in 4 months, and still there was no date set for his visit. Although they sometimes became discouraged and talked of going back to America, they persevered. Prabhupada had promised he would come when they got a temple, and that promise helped them remember that they were personally serving him. They felt that he was doing the work and they were his assistants. His absence was only external. By his instructions, whether written, spoken, or remembered in the heart, he was always with them. He was constantly directing them. While trying out various schemes to popularize Krishna consciousness in London, Shyamasundar arranged for a program to which he invited many of London's prominent citizens. About 100 people responded to Shyamasundar's formal invitation, 1 member of parliament, a few government officials, and mostly young people. The devotees served a feast and showed him a film of Srila Prabhupada walking by Stowe Lake in Golden Gate Park. Prabhupada had sent a tape recording specifically for the evening, and the devotees highlighted it as the evening's special attraction, even though they hadn't had time to hear it in advance. Guru Das started the tape, and suddenly there was Prabhupada's voice. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept my greetings in the happy year of 1969 and blessings of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for your kindly participating in this happy meeting of Krishna consciousness. Although Prabhupada had recorded the tape in the quiet of his room in Los Angeles, the devotees were astonished to feel Prabhupada's direct presence, preaching Krishna consciousness to the English. Lord Chaitanya informed us that the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead can descend in transcendental sound vibration, and thus we chant Hare Krishna mantra offenselessly. We immediately contact Krishna in his internal energy. Thus we become immediately purified from all dirty things in our heart. The guests sat listening politely as Prabhupada described the soul's travail of transmigrating from body to body and the path of the soul's liberation through chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna consciousness was transcendentally colorful and full of transcendental pleasure. Chanting could be done anywhere on the street and in the park or at home, and Prabhupada concluded his talk. Chanting could be done anywhere on the street, in the park, or at home. Oops, got an extra line in there. But to assemble and sit together, we require a place for congregation. Therefore, a temple in the Krishna consciousness movement is required to be established in various centers in the world, irrespective of the particular country's culture, philosophy, and religion. Krishna consciousness is so universal and perfect that it can appeal to everyone, irrespective of his position. Therefore, I fervently appeal to you all present in this meeting to extend your cooperation for successful execution of this great movement. Thanking you once again. There was a pause, and then Prabhupada began playing the harmonium and singing Hare Krishna. Afterwards, he again spoke. My disciples in London have very eagerly asked me to visit there, and I am also very anxious to see you all. But as soon as there is an opportunity, I shall go with my Sankirtan party, who are now engaged in Los Angeles, and that will be a great pleasure for you all to meet together. That is all. Only a few weeks after this meeting, the group received their first important publicity. A photo of the 6 devotees and little Saraswati appeared in an article by the famous columnist Atticus in the Sunday Times. Guru Das was quoted as saying, "Hare Krishna is a chant which sets God dancing on your tongue. Try chanting Queen Elizabeth and see the difference." Okay, so we chant Queen Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth. How's that working for us? Not well. Hare Krishna. The article described the missionary group from America as very gentle people, a bit unworldly, but not at all ingenuous, citing their renunciation of illicit sex and intoxication. The article commented, "Tame, you might think, but they look very well on it, and what's likely to earn them a public is their chanting." Within a few days, the same article appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle, but with a new headline, "Krishna Chants Startle London." Prabhupada was pleased when he saw the headline. Indeed, his Grihastha disciples had succeeded, whereas sannyasi godbrothers had failed. Although several of Prabhupada's scholarly godbrothers had lectured around England over the last 35 years, only one person, an elderly English lady named Elizabeth Bowtell, had shown interest. Yamuna had written Prabhupada to find out if they should visit Mrs. Bowtell. She had received the name Vinod Vani Dasi, and Prabhupada had replied, "The history of this Vinod Dasi is that she is an old lady and has a house and has hung a sign Gaudiya Mat, but that is all. If they liked," Prabhupada had said, "they could pay her a courtesy call and see if she would let them use her place for kirtans." One of the men had gone to see her at her home, several hours out of the city, but from behind her closed door, she had refused to meet with him unless he brought an introductory letter from the Gaudiya Mat in New Delhi. Vinod Vani Dasi was the fruit of 35 years of sannyasi preaching in England, whereas in 4 months, Prabhupada's young American missionaries were startling London. After months of living scattered throughout the city, the devotees met a landlord who allowed them to stay together rent-free in a vacant warehouse at Covent Garden. The devotees improvised a temporary temple and soon recruited their first 3 British devotees. The newcomers at once took to the full Krishna-conscious regimen, including the dhoti and shaved head, and loved it. The devotees, thrilled to see their group expanding and Prabhupada's potency working, decided to phone Prabhupada from their landlord's office. The telephone was a convenience phone or conference phone, and Prabhupada's voice came over the little loudspeaker on the desk. The devotees sat around the desk listening tensely. "Prabhupada," Mukunda said, "we have some brahmacharis here." "Oh, they are cooking chapatis." Prabhupada asked from across the ocean. The devotees laughed. Prabhupada asked across the ocean. The devotees laughed uncontrollably, then hushed to hear more. "No," said Mukunda, "but they will now." The devotees each told Prabhupada how they missed him, and he said he missed them too, and would come as soon as they could get a place. After allowing the devotees 3 months in the warehouse at Covent Garden, the landlord announced that he needed to use the space and the devotees would have to move. The couples moved to 3 separate locations, and again, their strong group spirit dissipated. Prabhupada began sending 2 or 3 letters a week to the scattered couples, praising them for their sincere determination. The devotees would gather regularly, if only to show one another their latest letters. Prabhupada wrote to Mukunda of his desire to preach Krishna consciousness in the West, specifically London. As far as I am concerned, I always wish only to expedite my mission of life to spread Krishna consciousness in the western part of the world. I'm still firmly convinced that if I can establish this movement through the help of all the boys and girls who have now joined with me, then it will be a great achievement. I am an old man, and there has already been warning, but before I leave this body, I wish to see some of you very strong in Krishna conscious understanding. I am very glad and proud also that you 6 boys and girls, although you have not been able to establish a nice center in London, still you have done your best. And the news had reached far away in India that my disciples are doing very nice work in Krishna consciousness. So that is my pride. I've received a letter from my godbrother informing me that it has been advertised in India that in Vietnam also somebody is spreading Krishna consciousness movement. So there is no need to be disappointed. You go on with your work as best as Krishna gives you the opportunity, and there is no cause of your anxiety. Everything is going on smoothly, but since you are now separated, the strength of your activities appears to be a little disturbed. Now you try to assemble together in the same spirit as you were doing, and in that case, temple or no temple, your movement will go on progressively. We're not much concerned about the temple because temple worship is not primary factor in this age. Primary factor is Sankirtan. But sometimes we want a center where people may gather and see, so a temple is required secondarily. So try your best immediately to live together. I am very much eager to see that you again live together. For Srila Prabhupada's disciples, his instruction that they preach in London was much more binding than any other obligation. He was in their hearts, and they thought of him constantly. In carrying out his orders and trying to please him, they were constrained not by force or law, but by love. To please the spiritual master is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for Prabhupada's sincere disciples, to please him seemed the end in itself. Los Angeles, June 23, 1969. After leaving New Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada visited his center in Los Angeles, where he installed deities of Radha and Krishna. Although, as he had told his disciples in London, the primary factor was Sankirtan, deity worship was also necessary. In his writings, Prabhupada had discussed the need for deity worship, and he had gradually introduced higher and higher standards of deity worship in each of his ISKCON centers. Los Angeles, having become the model ISKCON center, was the natural place for him to introduce a more opulent and demanding standard for worshiping Radha and Krishna. While more than 100 devotees and guests sat in their spacious hall, Prabhupada bathed and dressed the little forms of Radha and Krishna, then placed them on the altar. He was inviting Radha and Krishna to descend, to give his disciples the opportunity to serve them. He was offering his disciples Radha and Krishna with faith that his disciples would not neglect them. If the devotees somehow lost their enthusiasm, Prabhupada explained in his lecture, then the worship would become like idol worship. If there is no life, then it is an idol worship. Where there is life, feeling, then you think, where is Krishna? Here is Krishna. Oh, I have to serve him. I have to dress him. I have to serve Radharani. She is here. Oh, I just have to do it very nicely and as far as possible decorate her to the best capacity. If you think like this, then you are Krishna conscious. But if you think that it is brass-made doll or idol, then Krishna will reciprocate with you accordingly. If you think that this is brass-made idol, then it will remain brass-made idol to you forever. But if you elevate yourself to a higher platform of Krishna consciousness, then this Krishna, this very Krishna, will talk with you. This Krishna will talk with you. With each visit to each center, Prabhupada gave the devotees more service, deepening their commitment to Krishna. All the various services were actually the spiritual master's responsibility, he said. And when a disciple cleaned the temple or performed any service, he did so as the spiritual master's assistant. And any job done improperly was the spiritual master's anxiety. If the devotees whimsically changed the deity worship or neglected the temple, then Prabhupada, more than any disciple, would feel distress. Whenever Prabhupada saw a disciple eager to take on more of the anxiety of preaching Krishna consciousness, he would assign that devotee greater responsibility. Anxiety for serving Krishna, Prabhupada said, was the greatest satisfaction. As Bhakti-Vinod Thakur had stated, the trouble I encounter in your devotional service, I will consider the greatest happiness. Satisfaction for the devotee, Prabhupada explained, laid in pleasing the previous spiritual masters, and that was best accomplished by preaching to the fallen souls. To the degree that the devotee carried out that order, they would satisfy their spiritual master and subsequently feel satisfaction themselves. Prabhupada gave the example of Krishna and the gopis. When the gopis pleased Krishna in the rasa dance, Krishna smiled. And when the gopis saw Krishna smile, their happiness and beauty increased 1,000,000 times. When Krishna saw the newly increased beauty of the gopis, he became more pleased. And thus the happiness and beauty of the gopis increased even more. This loving competition increased on and on unlimitedly. Even in dealings between spiritual master and disciple, a sense of loving competition prevailed, each wanting to serve the other, neither seeking service for himself. Prabhupada was increasing the duties and the responsibilities in each of his ISKCON centers. And sincere disciples were coming forward to accept those responsibilities. Thus, everyone was feeling satisfaction. This was pure devotional service, to be free from all material desires and to serve Krishna as directed by the spiritual master and the scriptures. January 15th, 1969. My dear Dindro and Vanalata Mulak, please accept my blessings. I hope by this time you have safely reached your home and everything is going well. When you were here, I requested you to connect with me, some of your tenants at the Natun Bazaar, selling brass utensils. I want many pairs of Nabadweep-made kartals, so please introduce to me some of your reliable tenants, and I shall send you the money for purchase. The supplier should pack it nicely in a gunny bag. We have got our own shipping agents, Messengers United Shipping Corporation, 14/2 Old China Bazaar Street, room number 18, Calcutta number 1. And they will take care of the shipping. I have already shown you samples of kartals while you were sitting in my room, and I hope you will help me in this connection. I do not know if you are able to visit our Hawaii Honolulu temple. Perhaps you were unable. Anyway, I shall be glad to hear from you about your pleasant journey from Los Angeles to Calcutta by Japan. You would be pleased to know that in London, one rich English boy has agreed to donate a house, which is worth 800,000 rupees for our temple there. At present, our devotees there are in a rented house, but I think by the next month it will be possible to sit in our own London temple. In this temple, I wish to install Radha Krishna murtis, and if you so desire, you can donate a pair of murtis for installation in the London temple. That will be very much glorified for your great forefather, the late Raja Rajendra Mulak. Very much appreciated would be a pair of murtis of the size and gesture of Sri Sri Radha Govindaji in late Kashinath Mulak's temple. Another request to you is that because you have so kindly come to see me, it is my duty to instruct you about your spiritual advancement of life. Both of you are so fortunate to become the servitors of Sri Sri Jagannath Deva installed by your forefathers. The best thing will be to increase your affection for these Jagannath Devas, and as such, you should not eat anything which is not offered to Jagannath. In other words, you should take only prasad of Jagannath Deva. This practice will so much help you in your spiritual life. This facility you have got in this life should not be missed. That is my request to you both. I hope this will meet you in good health. I am awaiting your early reply. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. My dear Hamsaduta, please accept my blessings. Thank you for your letter of December 25th, 1968. I'm awaiting your pictures of the house which might be used for prasadam program. As far as the press utilizing this place, it is not possible because the press is to be set up either in New Vrindavan or in New York. Here in Los Angeles, we have a very nice place. The rent is very high, but if we can maintain this establishment, it will surely be a great fortune. Ooh, I could just go on reading and it's time. Let me finish this page. Yeah, I lost track of time. Hare Krishna. I'm glad to know that you now have a nice apartment. Live comfortable there and try to improve the temple's condition to your best capacity. If there will be an opportunity to purchase the new house you have found, try your best for this. I thank you so much for having nicely appreciated the Bhagavad-Gita as it is. This book should be read by all of my students at least one chapter per day, and in Kirtan class it should be discussed shloka after shloka. Practically, we have tried to explain in this book all of the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. If you can simply cram Bhagavad-Gita, then you will surely become a good preacher. I'm going to stop here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.